But I want you to understand something, and I'm going to say this very clearly. I was not there. Only thing I was or hearsay, not hearsay, but to say, like, okay, my religion of Chthoni Asupel, that's the underworld. He was like on the Mummy, the Black Book. So this was them, my little cousins, the one that was in the house with me. That when I got to serve the search warrant.
Right.
This was their ritual of sacrifice.
The descent of Nikko Jenkins wasn't a sudden fall. It was a slow, documented spiral that began almost as soon as he entered school. At the tender age of 7, he was already placed into foster care, and his behavior quickly escalated from truancy to bringing a loaded handgun to school, an unimaginable act for a second grader. The warning signs were obvious to anyone watching. This pattern meant his teenage years were consumed by institutions, culminating in his conviction for armed robbery at 17, cementing his trajectory toward a life spent behind bars. Ignoring early red flags only guarantees a terrifying future payoff. Imagine being locked alone in a segregation cell for 23 hours a day, year after year, with virtually no contact or programming. This was the reality for Nikko Jenkins for a staggering percentage of his time in the Nebraska correctional system, including the 2 years immediately preceding his release. Psychiatric evaluations often disagreed on a clinical diagnosis like schizophrenia, but nearly all noted his serious behavioral issues and potential for violence. The lack of meaningful rehabilitation became a time bomb. Instead of being gradually reintroduced to the general population with programming, his severe mental state, marked by self-mutilation, was incubated in isolation. Isolation doesn't rehabilitate. It can easily shatter minds. Here is the most damning twist. Before his release date arrived, Jenkins repeatedly sought assistance, specifically requesting that he be civilly committed as a danger to others rather than being discharged. He exhibited severe self-mutilation, attempting to carve the number 666 onto his head. This isn't typical manipulation. It's a frantic cry for help from someone who knows they are unstable. Correctional officials ignored his pleas to be involuntarily hospitalized. They chose to stick to his maximum release date, essentially prioritizing administrative rules over public safety, leading to 4 deaths. Sometimes, the threat is the message. On July 30th, 2013, Nikko Jenkins walked out of prison after serving 10.5 years of an 18-year sentence, having received no transitional assistance or mental health support. He had been incarcerated since he was 17 and emerged directly from 5 years of near-total isolation. The societal impact was immediate and devastating, but the clock was ticking silently. The freedom he gained became a death sentence for others. In the community, the untreated delusions he nurtured in solitary confinement immediately took root in the real world. A sudden release from deep isolation is a dangerous experiment. How quickly can a broken mind descend into random violence?
The white F-150. We got 2 parties inside the vehicle. Appear to be shot in the head. And can you send a squad to our location?
Less than 2 weeks after his release on August 11th, 2013, Jenkins's spree began. Juan Uribe Pena and Jorge C. Cajiga Ruiz were lured into a white pickup truck on the premise of a sexual encounter, driven to Spring Lake Park, and each shot execution style in the head with a 12-gauge shotgun. The cold calculation of the murders was immediately apparent. Their pockets were turned out, indicating a motive that was a terrifying mix of robbery and random senseless brutality. When the mental barriers collapse, all morality disappears instantly. Imagine seeing an old acquaintance from prison, someone you trust, only for that meeting to be your last. Just over a week later, on August 19th, Jenkins claimed his third victim, Curtis Bradford, a man he had actually met while incarcerated. It's believed Jenkins and his sister lured Bradford out under the guise of committing a robbery together before shooting him twice in the back of the head. His prior acquaintance offered no protection from the rampage. This murder shattered the notion of a purely random spree, weaving a chilling, targeted thread into the chaos. Trusting someone who just exited prison is always a gamble. The spree reached its horrific conclusion on August 21st with the murder of Andrea Kruger, a 33-year-old mother and bartender working late. Jenkins abducted her from her SUV, drove her to a remote road, and shot her multiple times. This murder was particularly shocking due to its entirely random nature and the victim's ordinary life. She was simply a woman trying to get home after a shift. Her death underscored the sheer, indiscriminate terror Jenkins unleashed.
Officials won't say what they took from this Tudor Heights apartment Thursday night, but sources say evidence recovered may be connected to several unsolved homicides. This apartment near 108th and Maple is where police arrested 26-year-old Nikko Jenkins Thursday for an outstanding felony warrant for terroristic threats. Sources say Jenkins' ex-girlfriend called police saying he threatened to kill her and her family. And the woman who reports Jenkins told her he was going to send demonic forces to her mother's house. But sources say that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Nikko Jenkins, age 26, arrested today on 4 counts of first-degree murder, the Kruger homicide and the murder 2 days earlier of 22-year-old Curtis Bradford. A week earlier, 2 more killings linked to Jenkins. Jorge Cajilla Ruiz and Juan Uribe Peña shot to death in a pickup near Spring Lake Park. Investigators today say Nikko Jenkins was an indiscriminate killer. Some victims he knew, others he did not.
After his capture, Jenkins confessed to all 4 murders during a rambling 8-hour interrogation.
There you go. I don't like to be alone. I need to speak to someone. Okay. Because that's what makes my mind frame goes back. I'm schizophrenic, bipolar, sir. I don't take medication. So right now, that's why I'm trying to stay. That's why I told them they need to hurry up when I'm in this mind frame. Okay. So that when I speak to you, it's clear. And but another thing, what I'm about to do, the sheriff office and you guys need to be honest with me. Okay. Because if we're going to make this work and get this closure for this family, you're going to have to tell me what you have and what you don't have. That way I know if I have to go get it for you. After...
You alright?
You alright, man? You alright, man? That's what I don't understand, man. He said, I was in the Nebraska operations, man. All I wanted was help from the people, man. I will testify to that. This is the first time that I've ever aided and assisted law enforcement in my life. So any jury, any judge, any prosecutor will be, once I sit on that stand and testify to this, it's golden. Any jury is not going to look at me and say, oh, he's told before and he's done. With my history and my reputation, and this first time testimony of ever aided and assisted law enforcement, and everything that I'm saying is accurate.
You gotta come to terms.
I understand.
Because here, listen to me.
But
listen, I've listened to you for a long time. It's time for you to listen to me. Because like what you said, if you don't tell me what the heck happened out there, people are going to think the absolute worst. People are going to think the absolute worst. If this a robbery went bad, if there's someone did something really stupid, now's the time. Because otherwise, you're right. They're going to look at Nikko Jenkins as a flat, bloody killer. That's what's going to happen. You not realize I got Nikko Jenkins? Do you not realize that? I got Nikko Jenkins. I got you.
What do you mean you got me?
I got your DNA at the murder scene. I got your DNA in the car.
Sir.
I got the weapon. I got Nikko Jenkins. I don't need to make... I don't care about it. I just want other people who are involved in it. What the hell happened out there? And why? Alright, I know who. I know what. I know when. I know where. And then when I talked to you earlier, you were saying stuff about a carjacking.
That woman's husband and children, that woman's husband is grieving right now. This is not just some psycho killer that just wanted to go trophy. I'm documented psychiatrically disordered. I'm documented chemically imbalanced. This is a fact. So my point is,
we're well aware of that.
My point is this though. This family didn't deserve this.
Right.
This could have been prevented had it not been for the Nebraska Department of Corrections doing what they knew what they supposed to have did. And they never gave me an opportunity. They never gave me an opportunity for treatment because I wouldn't take the medicine.
Mr. Nikko Jenkins was an indiscriminate killer who wreaked havoc on the Omaha area since being released from prison on July 30th. He crossed racial, gender, and city boundaries to commit his murders. It is rare to have a killer cross racial and gender lines, so law enforcement knew we had an exceptionally violent offender.
He stated he had committed the killings at the command of the ancient Egyptian serpent god, Apophis, whom he calls the god of chaos and death. While experts debated whether he was truly psychotic or merely faking for an insanity plea, Jenkins maintained his actions were divine obedience. The defense attempted to frame his delusions as schizophrenia. However, the court ultimately found him competent to stand trial, forcing the legal system to navigate the fine line between mental illness and criminal responsibility. A plea of divinity rarely works in a courtroom.
Portray Nikko Jenkins as a cold-blooded killer, but his wife says he never got the help he needed.
And his psych evaluation shows he needed mental help as early as the 2nd grade. That's when he says a voice told him to bring his mom's gun to school. A voice Nikko now says is an Egyptian demon forcing him to kill.
He's not pretending to be crazy, he's real life crazy. That Apophis gives him orders.
Nikko told her Apophis saved him from attempting suicide in solitary confinement a few years ago.
It was this voice that came and was just like, if you do what I tell you to do, if you follow my demands, then I'll make sure you're safe and make sure you're okay.
Rob and Brandy, we've heard it before. An Egyptian god speaks to Nikko Jenkins, but a psychiatrist in court today says he thinks Jenkins is faking it, while another doctor from Douglas County Corrections testified of all the people he's evaluated, Jenkins is by far the most dangerous.
Lincoln Regional Center doctors say he's got a personality disorder, but he isn't clinically insane. Jenkins says he heard the voice of an Egyptian god while carrying out the murders. The 31-page report entered into district court details dozens of evaluations of Jenkins at the Lincoln Correctional Center and his history from a child through adulthood. Clinical psychologist Kurt Newring with Forensic Behavioral Health reviewed the report and says there's a pattern of antisocial behavior.
That's not part of the is he competent or is he not, but it resonates pretty clearly in the evaluation that this is a man that has, over his lifetime, manipulated others, deceived others, abused others, and has taken satisfaction in doing that. It seemed, based on the report provided, these symptoms came up when he needed them and disappeared when he didn't.
What happens when a legally competent but deeply disturbed spree killer represents himself in court? Jenkins's trial was marked by extreme behavior. He was allowed to represent himself, and his courtroom antics included speaking in tongues, howling, and laughing as the details of his victims' deaths were read. He used the courtroom as a stage for his mental breakdown. At one point, he sliced his own tongue to make it look like a snake's tongue, claiming it was a sacrifice to Apophis, a shocking display of self-mutilation. This was not a trial. It was a psychological spectacle. Though psychiatrists frequently disagreed on his specific diagnosis, with some citing schizophrenia and others pointing to antisocial personality disorder with malingering, faking symptoms, Jenkins was ultimately found competent to stand trial.
Life or death will be up to the 3-judge panel in the case against convicted spree killer Nikko Jenkins. This morning, attorneys argue if Jenkins' IQ was high enough for him to even have a death penalty hearing. A test when he was first incarcerated in 2003 suggests his IQ was 69, which is under the threshold. Jenkins himself objected to his own attorney's questioning and wanted to get right to the 3-judge panel.
I want to expose these temporal physical evidence in this perjury that these officers committed before I was ever charged.
Judge Peter Battalion orders that the hearing move forward and Jenkins is competent. Jenkins tells me he pleaded no contest because he wanted to keep his family from being implicated in the murders, but now says that he was set up. He will testify in the death penalty hearing and says he wants to expose the corruption.
The internal affairs investigation on Douglas County Sheriff's and Omaha Police Department have been filed, and those law enforcement agencies need to file those investigations to those tampering physical evidence of the law enforcement officers.
6 of his family members were eventually implicated in connection with the slaying spree, including his sister, Nikko Jenkins, who was sentenced to life in prison. His mother was sentenced for buying the ammunition used in the killings. Jenkins was eventually convicted and sentenced to death by a panel of 3 judges.
The defendant's commission of these 4 murders over a 10-day period is one of the worst killing sprees in the history of this state. Each one of these murders was a deliberate and planned act. The victims were pre-selected and the murders were purposeful. Therefore, this panel finds that the death penalty is appropriate, should be, and is hereby given for each of the 4 murders by the defendant. It is therefore the sentence of this court as follows. At case CR 13-2768, count 1, murder in the first degree, a class 1 felony, death. Count 2, use of a deadly weapon, firearm to commit a felony, a class 1C felony, 45 to 50 years to run consecutive to all murder convictions at counts 1, 4, 7, and 10. Count 3, possession of a deadly weapon by a prohibited person, class 1D felony, 45 to 50 years to run consecutive to all murder convictions at counts 1, 4, 7, and 10, and count 2.
They found that his crimes, the senseless, random, and brutal execution of 4 people, rose to the level of deserving capital punishment. The panel specifically rejected his Apophis defense as mitigating evidence. If this deep dive into criminal psychology and systemic failure has you thinking, then you definitely won't want to miss our next video. Please take a second to hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments.